Well, hello, nerds. Thank you once again for joining me for another delightful episode of The News. This week is a doozy of an episode, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button or follow however you have to on whatever platform you are, and join me this week. Music is bringing a crazy Knocked Loose tour announcement. We also have Valve is in a bit of a situation over in gaming and tech. My Hero Academia is hitting a surprising milestone in comic books and books. TV streaming has WB Discovery just racking up the L's, as well as in movies we have Zack Snyder doing the same thing, and we might have good news in the rumor mill for Half-Life 3. That and honestly quite a lot more. Like I said, a doozy, so like button and all the things, let's jump into it. So this week in music, like I said, we have Knocked Loose announcing a headlining US tour with a very unexpected supporting band. We have an update on a channel favorite band on their new record, plus a classic band is throwing in the towel, it would seem, for touring, but only touring? Let's get into that. Follow-ups and corrections this week. We actually have one, and it's really cool, and I'm totally excited about it. Black Braid has sent out emails, if you're on his mailing list, announcing that he is actively working on the next record, finally. That record is set to be released next year, but that's not to say that we're not going to get anything before then. He actually is planning on releasing the first single, or music video, or however you want to look at that, for the next record this week, which means he's been doing a little bit of work that we haven't been 100% knowledgeable of. Either way, super exciting. No announcement as to what the song is or anything. It will be released Friday as I record these things, Tuesday nights and Wednesday mornings. It's not been released, so we can't really talk about what the single is, but we will be next week for sure. That's the only follow-up we have this week. So let's get into the new music section. This week in new music, our first bit comes from former Fear Factory frontman Burton C. Bell. He has released another single. It's called Technical Exorcism. This one's a little bit more groove and bass oriented than previous outings, especially the stuff that he did with Fear Factory, which is not a bad thing at all. Still dig... I'll say this cautiously, because Burton C. Bell is not my favorite metal vocalist, but he's still a solid and consistent metal vocalist, so you know exactly what you're going to get out of him. The really interesting part about this is the difference in the music behind those vocals, and it's worth a listen for sure. So definitely check out Technical Exorcism, the new single from Burton C. Bell. The next one comes from a band that I almost didn't talk about this week. The name of the band is Pop Evil. They have released a new single called What Remains. This is not what I remember about these guys. They've kind of been not on the radar for a while. I don't want to say that they were on hiatus, because I don't know that for sure, but I think they might have been. And this is a band I honestly have a little bit of a personal history with, but that's irrelevant to the fact that they just put out a new single. This is surprisingly heavy for this band. They generally put out like very octane core, like on the lighter side of octane core stuff. And this, I mean, this is still pretty much octane core, but it's almost like liquid metal heavy. Definitely worth a listen, if for no other reason than morbid curiosity, because they're changing things up, and that's not always a bad thing. Usually it's a good thing. In this point, I'm gonna leave that one up to you. The next band we are talking about for new music is a new band as far as I understand it. They are called Neon Nightmare. The name of the song is Lost Silver, and this one is definitely 15 Shades of Typo Negative. As much as I say Do Unto Others has shades of Typo Negative in their sound, this is like copy paste the Typo Negative sound to a large degree. Not exclusively, but definitely to a large degree. It's still definitely worth a listen to, especially since we don't get new Typo Negative these days. So yeah, it's worth a listen for that reason, just to scratch that itch, if nothing else. But the bits that are unique unto Neon Nightmare are really interesting to listen to. I want to dig a little bit deeper into this band to really get the feel for what they have to offer, because this song is heavily typo, but I'm sure there's more to their sound than just this, and I'm really interested to get into that. So yeah, you should check this one out too. Only if you like the really gothy, dark kind of metal. Our next piece of new music comes from a band that I've heard of quite a bit in the community, never actually took the time to listen to. They put out a new track. The name of the band is Molder, as in something that causes mold to happen. And the name of the song is Catastrophic Reconfigure. This is barky death metal. This is like the quality of recording here is something you might expect more out of like a black metal band, just because this sounds like a demo. Honestly, the way this was recorded, just the quality of the recording is not what I expect out of modern production at all. I'm also a little bit of a production snob, and I recognize this, but I don't know, I feel like if your sound is about technical precision, and I mean, because that's the genre, death metal is about technicality, right? And then you sound like you just kind of threw this together in your buddy's mom's basement, and it just doesn't really serve your sound very well. And the excessive amount of reverb, I think, is enough to, it's over. Like, let's update the production quality of this stuff. You can still make this really brutal, and this song is super brutal. You can still make really brutal music, really brutal death metal. It doesn't have to sound modern, but it does, I feel like at this point, have to sound good. So yes, if you like brutal music, I would say definitely check out the new track from Molder. If you're a fan of Molder, then you know exactly what you're diving into. I feel like somebody who's new to the death metal genre should probably steer clear of this one until you are a little bit more well-versed in the death metals. But aside from that, I can't really make much of a recommendation. It's just not there production-wise. I'm sorry. And then our next piece of new music comes from the band out of Texas that is kind of making waves right now in the heavy scene, Kubla Khan. They have put out, it is a real quick little thing. They could have posted it as a short because it is a minute long, but Kubla Khan has released Supreme Ruler, is off their forthcoming record. I did not write down the record name because I take amazing notes, but this is just a 1 minute, 60 seconds worth of absolute freaking destruction. Actually, it's even shorter than that because it starts with a sample. And so it's like 45 seconds of just straight destruction. And it sounds rough on purpose, like that's kind of the way Kubla Khan rolls, but comparing this to that Molder track, like this is a little bit better of an example of what you can do in the extreme side of the production side of music. And it works super well. Like, the more I hear from Kubla Khan, and I did see them live recently, the more I hear from these guys, the more I really dig them. So I think this is absolutely worth a listen because it's only a minute long. It's straight out of the hardcore playbook. Check it out. Supreme Ruler, Kubla Khan. Yeah, do the thing. And now we're moving on to a band that I think we're done talking about when they release new singles, just because their profile is to a level where it makes sense that, people know they're gonna go listen to it just because, and they kind of have a sound unto themselves that you know exactly what you're getting into because they have a fan base that's big enough at this point. It's not to say if they don't do something crazy, we're not gonna talk about them again, but if they keep putting out solid, I'm not trying to diminish the value of this music, but if they keep putting out solid tracks like this, they're probably just going to go the way of like Mastodon or something, where we might reference them. We probably won't though. The band I'm talking about though is Escuela Grind. The name of the new track is Concept of God, and good Lord, this is brutal. I am a bit of a fan of these guys, and they just don't stop. They are constantly writing, constantly touring, constantly just in your face with, this is how freaking talented we are, and you're gonna have to deal with it and be our fan now. And yeah, sure, I'm on board, let's roll. I feel like everyone who is into the aggressive sounds that music can be should probably have at least a minor appreciation for Escuela Grind. This is a pretty decent track to get into if you've never really listened to them. The last song we talked about wasn't the best example of their sound. This one I think is a fantastic example of their sound. So go check out Concept of God from Escuela Grind. And then our final piece of new music this week, we got some deathcore from Russia in Slaughter to Prevail. Well, this is deathcore from Germany. The name of this band is Obey the Kraken. The name of the song is Whispers from the Depths. This is the second single from this new band. And oh boy, deathcore by numbers is kind of exactly what this is. Now, is that a bad thing? Abso-freaking-lutely not, because they are doing it stupid well. Production is right on point. I don't have any issues with the way this sounds. And the performances are really just knocking it out of the park. Vocalist just has all of the sounds that you would expect out of a deathcore vocalist to have. He's got them all down pat, and just, if you are looking for a prime example of the genre, this is your prime example of deathcore. Absolutely would recommend Obey the Kraken's Whisper from the Depths. That's all we got for new music. So now let's talk about tours and festivals. We got a couple of pretty decent tours to talk about. Not going for the big one first. The first one we are talking about is In This Moment. They have announced the God Mode Part 2 tour. So it's just this, they haven't stopped touring. They're just starting more dates. They've booked new shows. So God Mode Part 2 will feature Kim Dracula, Nathan James, and Mike's Dead as the supporting acts. Tour kicks off November 8th in Asheville. So this leg of the tour in Asheville, North Carolina, runs through December 7th in Manchester. It will be on sale as of today as I'm filming this. So the 14th is when it goes on sale, runs through tomorrow, the 15th, for the pre-sales. And then as of Friday, it will be open to general public. You can find a link down in the description that will take you to where you can purchase them. I do not have my own pre-sale code, so you're gonna have to find one on your own. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna send traffic to where I know you can get one, but I'm sure it's not super hard to find pre-sale code, so go check that out if you're interested. Next one, similarly going to be on sale to the general public as of this Friday, so the 16th, but pre-sale starts today as I'm talking, and tomorrow as you're watching, and then again Friday for the rest of the world. This is Knocked Loose. This is the big one that we teased at the beginning of the episode. Support from this one, this is the weird part. Support from this one is The Garden, Drain, Military Gun. Those are the three bands. The weird one is The Garden. The Garden is second billing, which means they're right before the headliner. This is not a band, like The Garden is great, don't get me wrong, I absolutely freaking love those guys, but on tour with Knocked Loose, I don't know who the other two bands are, Drain and Military Gun. I'm going to assume they're a little bit more in line with the Knocked Loose sound than the Garden sound. Garden sound is more avant-garde. I don't even know how to properly describe it, really. But yeah, it's a very weird combination. This tour starts October 4th in Columbus, Ohio, runs through November 10th in Washington, D.C., capital of this great nation. Pre-sale, like I said, begins today as I'm talking. We'll run through tomorrow as you're watching, and then we'll go open to the general public on Friday. Link in the description once again. And those are the only two? I thought there was a third. I am full of poop. Let's move right along to regular ass news then. This week in the regular news, we have Aerosmith is calling it quits. Not exactly. Aerosmith is thrown in the towel as far as touring goes. So Steven Tyler, I believe we talked about this when it happened, but Steven Tyler had a vocal injury last year and has been trying to recover from it ever since. He hasn't, largely because they've basically just been on tour ever since, and that doesn't really lend itself to healing vocal cords. So at this point, they're saying he very likely will never completely heal, so he'll never be back to 100%, and that's not really what they want to do with their touring cycles, so they're no longer going to tour. And I'm saying that very specifically because that's how they outlined it in the announcement to fans. They said that they are no longer going to be touring. They are calling it quits with the touring side of their career, implying that there's still going to be new music that comes from Aerosmith. They're still going to release songs and very possibly will do like one-off shows here and there. But as far as like full-blown tours, they're not going to do those anymore. They have canceled the rest of the dates on the current tour that they had booked. So if you have tickets to see them and you have not already seen them, you should be getting a refund. I think the refunds are going to be through the vendor through which you bought your tickets, though go check out the Aerosmith website in order to double check that. You can find a link down in the description if you don't want to type it in, you just want to click a button. I did that for you. But yeah, the pretty interesting situation with Aerosmith these days. That's what we got on that one. Let's move to our next one, which is Clutch. This is a quick one. Neil Fallon, lead singer for Clutch, is looking to start recording the next record sometime next year. He said they've been working on demos, so they're kind of technically working on it at this point. But they don't have anything really set in stone. They're going to really hunker down and get that going next year. So very probably by the end of next year, I would hope, we will see a new record from Clutch, and I'm here for it because I love those guys. That's what we got for regular ass news. That leaves only this week's music suggestion. The music suggestion for the week is Magma from Gojira. This is the record that follows their big one, the big release of Magma from Gojira. This is technically the third release, but the second major label release, I believe, that follows From Mars to Sirius, which was their breakout record that really got everybody into them. Randy Blythe is the reason why many people have heard of this band to begin with, and now they're just everywhere. They just played the freaking opening ceremonies at the Olympics, which is huge, not only for them, but for the community at large. I'm super stoked about that. But yeah, this is a significant album unto itself. Not just because it follows, it's a fantastic follow-up to From Mars to Sirius, but you've got tracks like Shooting Star, Stranded, and what was the Lowlands? Sorry, brain fart. Lowlands, really, really atmospheric. Just kind of those three tracks. If you don't listen to the whole record, just listen to those 3 tracks, and you'll get a very good picture of who Gojira is as a band. This is absolutely a record worth listening to. Go listen to Magma from Gojira. And then this week in gaming, Valve has a new game that is doing actually rather well over on the Steam charts, given that it's not been properly released yet. We also have a new Halloween game, actually a couple of Halloween games that deserve a little bit of attention, plus the 1-year anniversary of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game is happening right now, so we're going to talk about some things that they're rolling out for that one as well, plus a bit more. So again, let's just jump right in. All right, now let's get into follow-ups and corrections, shall we? First up, we have Helldivers 2. First up, for Helldivers 2 is the anti-tank mines were not unlocked, which is a good thing. I'm an Xbox guy. I don't have Helldivers 2. I don't know why that's a good thing, but apparently that's a good thing. So we didn't get the anti-tank mines, but really, that was short-lived. The glory of that was short-lived because during the same update through which they made the announcement, they also severely nerfed the flamethrower and at the same time rolled out a flamethrower-themed season. Was it the Gamer Pack? The Escalation of Freedom update. So Michael Erickson, who is game director for Helldivers 2, has addressed the fact, this is the other half of it, has addressed the fact that maybe they went a little too far with this. So he has said that, or he has acknowledged rather, that the update did not meet the target, did not do what they wanted it to exactly. Some of the things were not done right, is the quote, and the company will own up to it. He's also listing things that the company plans to accomplish over the next 60 days, including re-examining examining the approach to balance. So they're going to rebalance the balance patch, updating how the fire damage mechanics work. So they're going to slightly unnerf the flamethrower. I don't think they're going to completely bring it back to its old glory, but it sounds like they're going to dial some of the things that they did to it back, and rework gameplay to prevent excessive ragdolling, and then reprioritizing bug fixes, because apparently that's taken a back seat, is the way I am understanding it. So if I'm missing something, because I am not a Helldivers player, wish it was, because it looks like a crazy amount of fun, but then please let me know in the comments. But as of right now, they are acknowledging that the community is not happy, and they're going to do things to try and alleviate that displeasure. That's what we got for that one, though. Let's move over to one of the big ones from this episode, and that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That is the 1-year anniversary. Gun Media has announced they're going to be doing some new skins for the family. I'm sorry, it's a skin for the map. They're going to give you a new map for the family house map. They're changing the name. It's called Blood Moon. It's got a red moon. Everything's in this red shade. There are a couple of other changes to the map, if I'm understanding this correctly. Again, this is not a game I play, but there are a couple of other minor changes, but the big one is going to be the red moon, which is kind of cool. Also, they're releasing skins for Leatherface's chainsaw, which is also really cool. The skins are named as such: Bloody, Grimy, and Muddy. So if you're a Leatherface main and you would rather that side of the lopsided multiplayer, then you get new things. Also, a bunch of the DLC packs are being discounted for this 1-year anniversary over in the game store. So go check them out if you're interested in getting some fresh skins for your characters, because it sounds like they're all getting down there pretty cheap. Some of them are still about $20 even with the discount, but if I remember correctly, because I take amazing notes, remember this. If I remember correctly, though, there are some that are like $6 for skin packs, which is pretty cheap in modern gaming, I'm not gonna lie. That's what we got for Texas Chainsaw, though. Let's move over to some trailers in gaming this week. I say some trailers. We have one trailer for gaming this week, and that is Marvel vs. Capcom, the Fighting Collection. Still no proper release date, in spite of the fact that they are releasing this new trailer. But new trailer, man. This is coming out for, I'm pretty sure, all platforms. You're definitely PlayStation 5 and the Nintendo Switch. I'm pretty sure I saw it's getting released on the Xbox Series consoles. I don't know if it's going back compat for PS4, Xbox One. So modern consoles, yes. Previous generation, I'm pretty sure there was a plan for it at one time, and that's why I'm messing this up in my head. But either way, get it for the Switch, because this is going to be something you're going to want to take everywhere with you, and yeah, that's the way we're going. Anyway, that's the trailer we got. Let's talk about some regular news. Our first two pieces are kind of commingled. They both have to do with Halloween, the franchise, turning into video games. So there are 2 Halloween video games being announced. The first of which has not been formally 100% announced. They just said that they're working on a thing, Unreal Engine 5. It's going to be a narrative-driven game. It's going to be done in cooperation with John Carpenter, who created the Halloween franchise. So that's pretty damn awesome. So that's all we know about the one. The other one, though, we've got a bit of detail, and there might have been a trailer release for this. If there has been, you're probably seeing footage on the screen right about now, because I saw a trailer somewhere that somebody was talking about, but I didn't actually see it on YouTube yet, so maybe it's been released since I did the research for this piece. But it's a 2D side-scroller, that old school style, that is also being released alongside of an Evil Dead game that is very similarly styled. And if you get the 2 of them at the same, if you have both games, and the 2 of them will intermingle, you'll be able to cross games with characters. So that's honestly really cool. This one is going to be back compat with the previous consoles: Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Series consoles, X and S, as well as Nintendo Switch and the PC via Steam. In each of these games, you're controlling exactly who you think you are. In the Halloween game, you're controlling Michael Myers because apparently that's a thing that people wanted. The more I think about it, the more I totally get behind that. And then in the Evil Dead game, you're controlling Ash, of course. No word as to whether or not this is going to be one of the games that we're getting Bruce Campbell's voice in for Ash to motivate people to buy and play and whatever. We have pricing for the games as well. If you get the digital only version, it's going to be about $25. If you get the double bundle, the double feature bundle, which is both games, then it's going to be about $50. There will be a physical release as well that comes with a lot of really cool stuff. I did not see a price for the physical release. I would imagine it's going to be significantly more than $25, just considering A, I'm pretty sure they're a limited release for the physical, and B, you get a lot of really cool nostalgia collector's pieces with it. So check the trailer, assuming it's gone live properly, and I will try and link to it in the description, and that's what we got on that one, so let's move on. Our last piece of regular-ass news for this episode has to do with Valve's new game, Deadlock. Why do you not know what Deadlock is? You should know it. You're a Valve fan, aren't you? Aren't we all Valve fans? Well, kind of. But the reason that you probably haven't heard this, though, I mean, at this point, it's the worst kept secret in gaming, is because Valve has not 100% released this. It is still in some sort of testing phase, but they're doing it in a very strange way. So this game on Steam has a really high consecutive daily player count of over 22,000 players. So like I said, not a very well kept secret. A lot of people are getting their hands on this. It is an early build of the game. This is not the official launch build of the game. And you get a little screen at the beginning of it that lets you know that. But the way you can get your hands on it, which you can get your hands on it if you are tenacious enough, the way you get your hands on it is you get an invite from somebody who's already playing it. So if you know anyone, like I don't think it costs anything to get in on the beta, which I'm pretty sure this is technically what that is. It's not an alpha, but a beta. If you know anyone, even vicariously, they can send you an invite and then you get to download it for free for the beta testing phase, is what it sounds like. There has even been, The Verge, I believe is who it was, has done a proper review on this build of the game, which Valve has asked people not to do that. Not only just that, but also not to share any video or images from this game unless you're sharing the whole game with somebody, which is why this is so weird. And so The Verge, the reviewer for The Verge, did so. They put up video and images of the game on the Verge website doing their review. And then kind of coincidentally, I guess, almost immediately after the article was posted, the reviewer was banned from playing the beta unless he just creates a new email account somewhere and has his buddies invite him back again. Like, this is the most ridiculous thing. Anyway, so yeah, Deadlock is a thing. It's a arena shooter, free to play online multiplayer, blah 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 blah. All of the things that everybody's doing these days. That's what it is. That's what we got for regular ass news this week for gaming and tech. We also have a suggestion this week for gaming and tech, and I'm there. I might be broken. There might be something wrong with me because I can't stop playing Mortal Kombat 1. So it's really hard for me to recommend anything else. So that's what we're going with. The newest patch. I'm telling you. If you played Mortal Kombat 1 less recently than a month ago, if you have not played Mortal Kombat 1 in a month or more, download the newest patch and tell me it's not 10 times better, especially if you're a Scorpion main, which I am. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm trying to play X Defiant. That was our suggestion last week. I really want to play that game, but I really can't not play Mortal Kombat. So, suggestion for the week. Okay. This week's comic book section is quite large. We have My Hero Academia hitting a milestone that is unexpected to the more casual fans of the franchise. There is a new power dynamic forming in the X-Men side of the Marvel Universe that we're going to discuss briefly. Plus, Garth Ennis, you know, the guy that brought us The Boys, he has a new book coming out that we're going to talk about, and quite a bit more as well. So let's do the thing. We have no follow-ups or corrections. We have no trailers, but we do have news in comic books and books. And it's a little bit big this week for comic books and books, so stick with me. But first up, we have the My Hero Academia thing. This one's actually going to be a little quick. Yeah, I know I teased it in both the main intro and the intro for the section. It's going to be quick. It's still slightly unexpected. My Hero Academia has ended. Me being an American, that just sounds weird to say about an ongoing story. So yeah, that's totally a thing. But after 10 years and 430 chapters, the My Hero Academia book has come to an end, which means the manga very likely has ends in sight, or the anime rather, has an end in sight as well, which again, just sounds so weird to me, but totally works. I wish it was more of or I guess less of a cultural thing and more just a comic book thing, that we got to the end of these stories and then we moved on with our lives and created new stories, because we have seen what happens with the main American comic book titles, and they tend to like flounder for a while and then just get really bad, and then maybe they'll get canceled, which canceled is not better than ending, right? Anyway, so yeah, My Hero Academia come to an end. I am not an active My Hero Academia reader, so more casual folk like me, this sounds weird, but apparently it was not that big of a surprise to the active fan base. So there you go. Next up, this one's gonna be a little bit of a conversation and less of a news piece, though still kind of news if you're not currently reading the X-Men. There is a new power dynamic inside of the X-Men comic books. We talked about the new initiative that's launching all of these new books. We have a bunch of new teams. Very specifically, we're talking about the mainline books of the Uncanny X-Men and the X-Men. I forget precisely what the books are titled, because I really only have a simple line of notes saying, I'm going to read it to you. So Cyclops versus Rogue is the new Charles versus Magneto. That's the conversation we're having. All right, so let me frame this in an interesting way, because both Cyclops and Rogue have worked for both Professor X and Magneto. Both Charles and Magneto, or Charles and Eric, I should say, both those characters have been good at some point. I don't know that Charles has ever been a villain per se. Like, he's been the antagonist to a certain degree of certain stories, but he's always been on the side of the heroes, whereas Magneto's kind of flip-flop on that. So that's the interesting dynamic there, though, is that they're both effectively going for similar goals. They just have different ways of getting there. Much like Batman and Superman both have the same goal. I mean, we're totally mixing our comic books here, right? Both have the same basic goal of, do good and stop people from doing bad. The Superman-Batman dynamic is Superman leads by example, Batman forces people into doing good out of fear. So different means to get to the end, right? But still the same basic ends. Charles and Magneto, you have, Charles wants to integrate. Charles wants everyone to be in harmony and brotherly love, and just everything works together and nobody is placed above or below anyone else. Whereas Magneto, this is where it differs from the Batman analogy, but whereas Magneto wants to place mutant kind above humankind, he still wants a type of harmony, though. He still wants he doesn't necessarily want death and all of the conflict. He just wants people to recognize their superiors in mutants, right? That's the way Magneto thinks. So that's the current dynamic, or that's the previous dynamic. Apparently what is happening, because I need to get back into the X-Men because I feel like it's getting better than it was, because it's been bad for a long time. Anyway, we have Rogue and Cyclops. Rogue being the one who is following more in Professor X's footsteps, in that she wants harmony. She wants everyone to just be integrated and no difference between human and mutant. Everybody is equal and the same. Whereas it seems that, and this is, I'm going going by what I read. I'm going by conversations I've seen. I'm going by, I haven't actually read the books. I've just read about the books. But it's an interesting conversation to have nonetheless. We have Cyclops going the Magneto route, where he wants some sort of elevation. It's not exactly the Magneto. There's a lot more shades to this. There's a lot more middle ground in here, but he wants some sort of elevation for mutant kind. He wants mutants to be able to take care of mutants and not get any friction from humans, whereas Rogue just wants everyone to take care of everyone and not delineate between the two. So it's a really interesting conversation to have, because that's kind of a, I mean, it's not a strong allegory for what's going on currently in our popular socio-political situation, but there are some parallels to be drawn. Certain people want definitive lines drawn so that we can recognize those lines and then compensate based on those lines. And then other people, the other half of the argument is nobody wants the lines, everybody just wants to be together in harmony. So it's a really deep philosophical conversation, is which one's right. So that's one level of this conversation. The other level of this conversation is this dynamic change necessary? Do we need to go from the Charles versus Magneto argument and make it a little bit more nuanced into this Rogue versus Cyclops argument? I honestly think that both conversations could be had, but if we're only focusing on one, I think the one that kind of draws more parallels to modern socio-political issues is more appropriate, because it's the X-Men, and that's kind of the way the X-Men have always functioned. So I'm here for it if it's being done well. And again, I have to start reading the books again in order to decipher if it's being done well. Hopefully you will join me in reading at least some of these books now that they're starting anew. This is a good jumping on point if you haven't read X-Men for a while, then getting into this new, I forget exactly what the arc is called because it's not in the notes, because it's kind of secondary to the overall conversation we're having. So, but yeah, that's kind of the dynamic shift that's happening right now in the X-Men side of things, and find it incredibly interesting. So let me know what you have to say on the subject. What am I missing? If you're actively reading these books right now, what am I missing that would be relevant to that conversation? Because I really think that's a good conversation to be having right now. That's what we've got though on that. Let's move over into the new Garth Ennis comic. So Garth Ennis has a new book called Babs. It will be coming out on, I did put this in the notes, written by Garth Ennis, illustrated by Jason Burrows. Ahoy Comics is who is publishing it. It will be released on August 14th of this year. So today, as I'm talking, is when it's releasing. This one is, this is super interesting. I mean, it's Garth Ennis. I'm a big Garth Ennis fan. If you're not, you should read The Boys. Also, he did Preacher. I'm totally brain farting that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. ADHD is a pain in the ass sometimes. I know things, and then they just kind of go, Pew! And then I forget. Anyway, so yeah, it is a parody of the fantasy genre. The main character, obviously, Babs. Babs has a talking sword named Barry. Barry has a mouth like what is the Billy Butcher. That's what his name is. I took better notes this time. It has a mouth like Billy Butcher, so again, totally Garth Ennis style, because Billy Butcher is a character created by Garth Ennis. This is basically just going to be poking fun and kind of breaking down this genre, much like he did in The Boys with the superhero genre. So yeah, pretty freaking awesome. Release date, like I said, is going to be August 14th, so today. It is Jason Burrows. Jason Burrows and Garth Ennis have both worked together before on The Punisher. If you read the Garth Ennis Punisher run, then you've seen Burrows' work. It is, like I said, also produced by Ahoy Comics. So go check it out. At least rifle through it at the comic book shop next time you're in, but probably pick it up because Garth Ennis is great. Our next one is another new book. We have a new book called Young Nomads. So this is a sign of the current state of comic books. This is an independent release. Battle Quest Comics is releasing a new fantasy title. It looks similar. The artwork makes the characters look very similar to the characters in Dune, so that's kind of the big thing that caught my eye. But it is a comment on the current state of comic books, that something like this, that is, the art is not exactly the best art, but it looks like an interesting story, that something like this can be so widely covered. I saw this on two pretty big comic book media news outlet sites. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. So I'm just gonna read what I've got. So fantasy title, The Young Nomads, created by writer-artist Stefano Corticelli. Series follows a group of young heroes, each with unique abilities, as they navigate a mystical world filled with magic, mythical creatures, and ancient secrets. So this is going to be, it again looks kind of sci-fi, but really is a lot of fantasy elements. Story takes place in a realm where powerful magical artifacts have been stolen, plunging the world into chaos, and the young nomads embark on a quest to retrieve the artifacts and restore balance to the realm. With a diverse cast of characters, including Lyra, Kale, Zephyr, and Mira, vibrant, dynamic artwork, the young nomads promises to be an exciting adventure. The first issue is set to release August 22nd, so next week. Yeah, just looks pretty interesting. Let's broaden our comic book horizons, shall we? Now, there's more than just Marvel and DC, guys. Next up, speaking of Marvel and DC, we're going back over to Marvel. We have a new sidekick for the Scarlet Witch, sidekick named Amaranth. Amaranth is a new character being introduced, injected even into these books. Just looked really interesting to me. Again, I think we're taking a turn for the better when it comes to Marvel books. Amaranth was working with Agatha. Now she is the Scarlet Witch's protege. She is Wanda Maximoff's protege. So interesting situation going on with the next generation of characters. Maybe this time they'll get it right, because the last time they tried to introduce us to a next generation of characters in Marvel, it went over very badly. So it looks like they're learning from their mistakes, and that's why we're talking about this. That, though, is the end of our regular ass news for comic books and books. Let's talk about some suggestions this week. Suggestion this week is not a comic book, but it is a book series, and we're talking about The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. I have about 16 of them. I have about 10 or 12 of them. There are 14 books in the proper series. I think there are a couple of side books as well, because I'm pretty sure I have those. But as far as the main, the Wheel of Time books, they are fantastic. This is the day in, day out kind of fantasy work that I think everyone should have an appreciation for. It's not the super silly, I can't even think of the name of the author. It's not the super silly stuff that is really for the hardcore whimsical fans of the genre. This is Tolkien light, I think, is a fair way to put this. And that's not really a put down. This is the breadth of work here is much more involved. There's a lot more stuff here to get into, because Tolkien only wrote those 4 or 5 books if you count Hobbit and the Silmarillion, but still 5 compared to 14 is a little different. But yeah, The Wheel of Time, if you've never read it, start with book 1, absolutely start with book 1, and then work your way through the series, and you will not regret it. I am myself still currently working my way through the series. So that being said, that is your suggestion for the week. This week's TV news, we have Warner Brothers Discovery is really trying to make their streaming platform profitable, really. The question of Oscar Isaac's return as Moon Knight gets answered, kind of. And we have the medical sitcom Scrubs is looking at a revival, probably. Let's get into the TV news, shall we? Let us now get into the follow-ups and corrections for the TV section. Follow-ups and corrections this week. We have a follow-up on the Ghostbusters situation. We now have official word that they are 100% moving forward with the animated series over on Netflix. The newest part of that, because we've talked about that previously, that they were probably going to be moving forward. Now we have 100% confirmation that they are moving forward, and we know it's going to be 3D animated, not cell animated. So different than we've gotten previously from animated Ghostbuster stuff, but that's all we've got right now. Let's move right along. Our next one comes from Warner Brothers Discovery. Oh boy, this is an ongoing story that just does not bode well for a company that is directly correlated to one of my favorite gaming companies, and that is Warner Bros. Discovery. They own NetherRealm, who makes Mortal Kombat. So Warner Bros. Discovery has officially closed down the Cartoon Network website. So cartoonnetwork.net no longer exists. If you go there, it is going to point you towards subscribing to Max. So previously, they have completely axed the Boomerang channel, which Boomerang was the older IPs than what Cartoon Network covered. So cartoonnetwork.net, if you didn't frequent that site previously, hosted like clips of shows, hosted full episodes of shows that you could watch on the Cartoon Network. And now you can't. Now you have to subscribe to Max. So Warner Brothers is doing a lot of things that they're trying to save money. It sounds like they're doing everything they can think of to not fire more people, because they've already gone through a round of firings and it has also not been super pretty for them. The other thing that they're doing, Warner Bros. Discovery, is they have announced that they're open to the idea of licensing out characters to other companies. So like other animation houses, other video game studios, theoretically could license out Warner Brothers owned characters, which is a very strange concept in my brain. But yeah, so we'll see how this works. Hopefully it does at least a little bit of what they're looking for so that they don't go completely under, because there's a lot of good stuff over there, but I think there needs to be a better way to do streaming. And I think that better way, honestly, is ads, guys. Like, that's the bigger conversation here, is ad supported. The reason television worked before we went streaming everything, the reason why you could get channels over the bunny ears, or however you got your free TV, the digital HD converter things or whatever, the reason you can get stuff for free, or even for fairly cheap. I mean, basic cable wasn't the cheapest, but by comparison, if you had a basic cable subscription, or you were subscribed to all of the major streamers, you would be saving money with the basic cable. And that's weird to say out loud as well. But the reason why you could get any of that for free is because TV had ads. Ad spots is what paid for everything. They paid the television stations to play these commercials, so then the television stations could invest in things that would get people to watch the TV long enough to say, okay, I'll sit through a 2-minute commercial. And that was the kind of symbiotic relationship. With streaming, you can only theoretically make so much money, because your target audience is only so large. So once you have their monthly check, there's not much you can do aside from raising the price of that monthly access fee. So the only way to really keep that loop going is to have ads. And the really, really crap part about this right now is they think that they need to do both. They need to charge you, albeit a little bit less than the other subscription fees, but still they're charging you a subscription fee to then still see ads. Amazon Prime is doing this. Netflix is doing this. HBO Max has not done this yet, but HBO Max and Disney Plus have both toyed with the idea very publicly. So I think that is the direction it's going. Hopefully there will be. And honestly, if you watch any of the free streamers, Tubi, Freevee, Pluto, I think Zumo is one of them. There's a couple others I'm sure I'm missing. But if you watch any of those, the thing that you'll see a lot on those is commercials, like you're watching on TV back 20, 30 years ago, because that is the way this works. You need companies to advertise on the entertainment releases in order for you to get the entertainment for free. Otherwise, you have to pay a lot of money, because this is not a cheap business. So yeah, it's an ongoing conversation. I would really love to hear anybody else's thoughts as far as if there's an angle on this that isn't being caught by a lot of people, then absolutely, let's have that conversation down in the comments or over on the socials, whichever you got to do. From there, let's talk about one more follow-up, and that is Moon Knight. Oscar Isaac previously has been in question whether or not he's going to be returning to the role. Well, now we know definitively that he is going to be returning to the role, kind of. So coming up, we have another season of What If. Moon Knight is going to be in this season of What If. What If is an animated show, so he is going to be returning to voice the character of Moon Knight. He is not returning to necessarily play the character of Moon Knight yet. Though again, that has not been 100% cut out of the equation. It's just, we don't know. We don't know, so we're gonna move on. All right, that brings us into trailers. We did have D23 this weekend, so we got a couple of trailers to talk about in the TV side of things. We have quite a bit of movie trailers to talk about, but we have Skeleton Crew was the big one from D23 as far as TV series goes. The D23 announcement, the show will start streaming December 3rd on Disney+. This looks like very, very cautiously optimistic about the fact that this looks like they're returning to how Star Wars theoretically started. So Star Wars originally was supposed to be a story for kids. Lucas wanted to do a family-friendly science fiction opera, effectively. Sci-fi, what is it? Space opera, that's the word I was looking for. So it looks like that's where they're headed back to, something more family friendly. Hopefully it makes sense in universe. It is going to be removed from the Skywalker saga. At least that's kind of how they're billing it. So that also bodes well. Beyond that though, like, we'll see. This does look like it's going to be better though. Maybe. The other trailer that dropped this week is not D23 related. It is, and honestly, just a teaser, but season 2 of Squid Game dropped a teaser. That series will be on Netflix come December 26th, so the day after Christmas, interestingly enough. Those are the only trailers really worth talking about as far as TV goes. Let's move over to regular ass news for TV this week. We have a new series over on Shudder that is going to be breaking down the genre of horror because it's on Shudder. That's called Horror's Greatest. It's going to be, each episode is going to be a different aspect of horror, and it's going to be the greatest elements or the greatest movies that are an example of said aspect. Just sounds really interesting. It is set to premiere next week, August 27th. If you are a Shudder subscriber, which you probably should be if you watch this channel, because we talk fair bit. I guess a lot is probably over exaggerating, but a fair bit about horror stuff. And honestly, Joe Bob is enough of a reason to subscribe to that one anyway. That's what we got there. Let's move. Our next one is Scrubs. We have a revival announcement of sorts. The series creator... We have series creator Bill Lawrence saying publicly that he is determined to get something into the next stage of development sometime within the next 6 months for a Scrubs revival. It sounds like they're going to do some sort of like limited series, maybe a la the Gilmore Girls, where it was just a couple of episodes. Gilmore Girls, I think, was 4 episodes. There's 1 episode per season of the year in the life of, effectively. So it sounds like that's going to be something in the vein that he's looking to do. We'll see though if it actually comes to fruition. We will definitely be keeping tabs on this one because Scrubs is very well loved at this point. Like this, that's a great series. If you've never watched it, then might I suggest? Speaking of suggestions, let's talk about our TV streaming suggestion this week. It is an Amazon Prime show. It goes by the name of The Expanse. It started on the Sci-Fi Channel, but then Amazon Prime saved it, and it has now come to its end, and it's absolutely worth your time. It is based on the book series by James S.A. Corey. It is, I don't know, it's kind of a spiritual successor, at least in my head canon, a spiritual successor to Serenity. I'm super, not as much in love with The Expanse as I am Serenity, but still, or Firefly, I guess is the word I was looking for, not Serenity. Serenity is the name of the ship, the name of the movie. Firefly is the name of the show. Oh, words. Anyway, so The Expanse scratches that itch. It's not a perfect substitute, but it works, and it's really good unto itself as well. So that is your suggestion this week, The Expanse, over on Amazon Prime. So this week in movies, first the Snyderverse dies, and now the Netflix stuff is starting to get on shaky ground. We also have James Cameron keeping a little surprise close to the chest for us. We're going to talk about what that surprise probably is. The return of the living dead situation really needs to be addressed as well. We're going to get to that in a bit more in movies this week. We do have some follow-ups and corrections. Follow-ups. Deadpool and Wolverine has broken into the $1 billion club. It is almost, as of doing research for this, so I don't know exactly where it is right now as I'm filming, so it might have passed this, but almost beating Joker for the highest grossing R-rated film ever. So we'll probably keep a little bit of tabs on this for a little while longer until it's no longer relevant. But this is huge. This actually plays into the rumor mill a little bit later as well, and we'll get to that in the speculation portion of the rumor mill. But Deadpool's gigantic. Deadpool and Wolverine. If you haven't seen it at least once by this point, you really should. But that's what we got on that one. Let's talk next about Zack Snyder and the Army of the Dead. So this is not a perfect movie. It was definitely not a perfect franchise either, but we were supposed to get a franchise. We got 2 movies in the Army of the Dead franchise, and now Netflix has officially killed it. Zack Snyder has confirmed that himself in a recent interview. There is no longer going to be any other spin-offs in this franchise, presumably because the Rebel Moon stuff was not very well received. And it's interesting that it's coming out now after the director's cut of the Rebel Moon movies has been released. First, the Snyderverse dies, which kind of amen to that. I was not a fan of the Snyderverse, but I was, though, a little bit of a fan of the Army of the Dead franchise. I feel like he was doing something interesting with the zombie tropes. And there was, honestly, he later said in this same interview that there was going to be a crossover between Army of the Dead and Rebel Moon, should he get deep enough into both of them, which sounds like it was only going to be a couple of movies more that we're going to have to sit through before we saw this crossover, which sounds kind of like an interesting idea. But it's never going to happen now. We might not even get any more Rebel Moon stuff, but we'll see. Only time will tell with that one. From there, though, we have, this one breaks my heart a little bit. Fixed. We talked about this movie when it was originally announced. Fixed. Genndy Tartakovsky, who is the guy that brought us Samurai Jack, Dexter's Laboratory, the Star Wars Clone Wars animated series, the animated short episodes. I think they were like 10 to 15 minutes each, those ones. All of this stuff, Genndy Tartakovsky does some amazing modern animation that works on so many levels. You can watch it as a kid because it's not offensive, it's not gross. Well, I think Primal maybe isn't for kids, but Samurai Jack, I think, is the prime example of what he can do as far as making something geared towards everyone in a way that is meaningful to everyone. Kids like it, adults like it. That is a prime example of who Genndy Tartakovsky is as a creator. Primal is also fantastic. He has a couple other things going on there, but the big one is this was going to be his first proper movie, and that is Fixed. Fixed was going to be an adult animated, so very adult oriented humor about a dog getting fixed. And it is no longer being distributed through Warner Brothers. This is another L that Warner Brothers is just taking. They're no longer distributing this. It has fallen back to Sony, who is the production house that put up the money for this movie to be made. So the movie is still getting made as far as it sounds, but the distribution will no longer be through Warner Brothers. Presumably, they're going to go through some other distribution house, though that very much remains to be seen at this point. It could just get shelved, or Sony could put it out themselves. A lot of stuff is up in the air with this one, but it still breaks my heart a little bit because there is the possibility that we won't get to see more Genndy Tartakovsky brilliance. And that's just a bad day for the world, honestly. Then let's talk a little bit about D23. We have The Incredibles. The 3rd volume of The Incredibles was announced at D23. We just had to mention that just because it sounds pretty awesome. There's a little teaser, but it doesn't really count because it's 10 seconds and you see the family. That's about it. The other thing in here is Wolfs. The new Brad Pitt, George, I did not say that incorrectly. WOLFS is how the movie is spelled. But the new Brad Pitt, George Clooney movie is already gotten a green light for a sequel, even though the first movie has not yet been released. But I mean, come on, Brad Pitt, George Clooney together on screen again. I don't think you can miss with this one, though it is, you know, possible. That's what we got though for follow-ups and corrections. Let's get into trailers. Like I said, D23 happened, so there's a lot of trailers to talk about. A lot of trailers have leaked. We're not necessarily going to talk about the leaked ones. I haven't watched the leaked ones because reasons. Like I'll watch them when they are officially released. But it's interesting to know that some of this stuff is leaked. We got the Captain America Brave New World. Woo! The Captain America Brave New World trailer leaked, so you get to see Harrison Ford as the Red Hulk. The more interesting one I think here is Tron. Tron Ares trailer has leaked, and the big takeaway from this leak is that we now know for sure that 9 Inch Nails has been brought in to do the soundtrack. So Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross has been brought in to do the soundtrack for this movie. So they went from the best EDM group ever in Daft Punk doing the last movie, which the soundtrack was better than the movie. The movie's not bad. We've recommended it as a watch here on the channel, but the soundtrack by far outshines the movie. This time though, I think it's an interesting clue to the shift of the tone of the movie, because Daft Punk is kind of, like I said, EBM, so electronic body music. This is the stuff that makes you want to dance and move and be happy and do things. 9 Inch Nails, not so much with the happy. So very interested. And you know, you also have Jared Leto as the lead in this one. So also very interesting here. If you want to go find a breakdown of what exactly happens in the trailer, or maybe scan through Reddit and see if they haven't pulled down all the instances of the trailer being published there, then by all means go do that. We're not going to do that here. I don't feel like getting a copyright strike on the channel. And like, it's just the big takeaway from this is 9 Inch Nails. We can watch the trailer in all of its glory when it's officially released, probably next week or so. Yeah, from there, we have Snow White. Oh man, live action Snow White. The trailer was finally released here. Oof, this is rough. I don't know if you want to watch this. Yeah, so Snow White trailer is bad. I don't know if there's fixing this one. Maybe they have time to make the dwarves look better, but I mean, in all honesty, they had to rotoscope these animated dwarves over the other dwarves that were just even worse. So I really don't know what's gonna happen here. The trailer's not worth watching though. Save yourself the time. Next up, we have the Fantastic Four First Steps teaser. Very, very short teaser. We got some interesting stuff here that also is going to play into the rumor mill. So if you have not yet watched the teaser trailer, by all means, link in the description. Go check it out. It's pretty cool. I honestly does quite a bit to hype you up, show you that there is some potential here for it to be good. Crossing fingers that potential comes through. Next up is Moana 2. Yeah, that happened. Next up is Mufasa, the Lion King. This is actually the second trailer for this Mufasa movie, and we didn't talk about the first one because, oh man, but the second one, nothing's been fixed, and so I think it deserves at least a little bit of attention because they have established certain things about these characters already in the first movie, the one that came out in the 90s, that was, you know, epic and amazing, and everybody loves it. And now for this reboot, prequel, they're changing things. Honestly, I'm pretty sure the things that were said in the animated movie were also said in the quote-unquote live action adaptation that came out a couple years ago that honestly did not do very well because, you know, reasons. But they're not fixing, 100% not fixing the visual issues from the last movie, and also not fixing the story issues that were already brought up from the previous trailer. So this one's also going to be pretty terrible. Not going to lie, this is maybe not worth your time either. Continuing on, we have one last trailer. This one is not D23 related. It is Daily Wire related. So if you know who Matt Walsh is, you know what the What is a Woman documentary is, then this is more of the same of that. This one's a little bit different though, because it's titled Am I Racist? So it's Matt Walsh doing the thing to see how the political sides define the term and what exactly quantifies as racism in modern America. Really interesting, very, very trolly. So if you do not align at all all with any sort of conservative politics, probably steer clear of this one. If you're curious about the other side, you align liberal, but you are whatever, progressive, however you want to put yourself, you're not conservative at all, not Republican, that's not what we're talking about, just conservative, then check it out, because Matt Walsh is pretty funny. He's a little hard edge on certain things I feel like don't do him any good to be hard edge on, but you know, to each their own. But yeah, still interesting, and the trailer's pretty funny. So that's what we got for trailers this week. Let's talk about some regular ass news. First up, we have Terminator news. Apparently James Cameron has secretly been working on a new Terminator movie. And that's all we know. Why would you just drop that and walk away? What the hell, James Cameron? Yeah, so James Cameron is secretly working on a new Terminator movie. As soon as we get more, we will talk about it, but that was just dropped this last week, so we had to share. Our next piece is Return of the Living Dead. So we have a bit of a Jason Voorhees situation on our hands with the Return of the Living Dead movie, which is really interesting because there was already some issues behind the scenes when this movie was made, because that was where the split for George A. Romero, and I honestly cannot remember his partner's name that made Night of the Living Dead. But Return of the Living Dead was the partner, was not George A. Romero. So I'm going to read you the synopsis that I have here real quick, and then we're going to get into it, just because there's information I want to make sure we touch on, at least in the synopsis of what's going down, the kind of basic breakdown of it. So, a lawsuit has been filed over the rights of the intellectual property for the 1985 comedy horror movie, The Return of the Living Dead. Living Dead Media LLC claims to own the copyright to the original screenplay and the underlying script for the film, as well as other trademarks, i.e. the characters in the film. The company is suing Return of the Living Dead Originals LLC, which was formed in July of this year, so just a month ago, and is allegedly using the credentials of Beverly Dawn Hartley, an actor from the original film, to claim ownership of the intellectual property. The lawsuit also claims that Return of the Living Dead Originals LLC is attempting to interfere with existing contracts between Living Dead Media LLC licensees. So it sounds like, because I did not see the formation of this Return of the Living Dead Originals LLC in the news previously, so it just somehow slipped through the cracks, but it sounds like, what's her name? Beverly Dawn Hartley, I'm pretty sure she's still alive. I don't think she's passed. It sounds like she is at least elemental in the creating of the Return of the Living Dead Originals company, and is trying to capitalize, because the release about this is quite a bit more detailed, but it sounds like she's trying to capitalize on the character she played in this movie. She's been in a number of 80s horror movies. She was kind of a horror queen of the time. So very interesting that now she's trying to capitalize on it. But she played, if you've seen the movie, she played the punk rocker who has the very famous line of, do you ever, fantasize about what it would be to be dead? That's a bit of a paraphrase, but you'll know who I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. So that's Nina Hartley. Yeah, so this is very interesting. It sounds like she doesn't have a leg to stand on, but the Living Dead Media Company hasn't been doing much as far as renewing the licenses with these, doing much to maintain the license. That's a better word, because they own the license. The renewal happens, but the maintenance of it, their website has been dead for a couple of years at this point. There is supposedly a reboot of the Return of the Living Dead in the works that is being sanctioned by the Living Dead Media Company, but that we haven't heard about for over a year at this point either, so very much could be in some sort of limbo or just not actually happening. It's a very interesting situation here. We will be keeping passive tabs on this, so if you're interested in things like this, we talked about the Jason Voorhees thing until it was squashed, at least mostly. As it stands right now, the international license for Friday the 13th versus Jason Voorhees is still a little bit up in the air. It still sounds like there are some issues between those two parties internationally, but as far as the States go, they have figured that all out, so that's where that one sits. But this one's going to probably get just as ugly. So we will continue to cover it as things develop, but that is what we have for our regular ass news this week. Let's talk about suggestions. Our suggestion, speaking of James Cameron, is T2 Judgment Day, Terminator 2, the sequel, the I'll be back, and he came back and now he's the good guy. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, why can't I think of the kid's name that plays John Connor, but whatever, it is a classic. We are about to get the T-1000 in Mortal Kombat 1 as a playable character. This is peak James Cameron. This is peak 80s into 90s sci-fi. This is just everything about this movie works so well. You have, honestly, visuals that up until very recently still felt super fresh as far as the digital visuals go. Even now, there are only a very small handful of scenes that the visuals don't really work so much anymore. They look dated. It didn't look dated until about 5 to 8 years ago. Honestly, go watch it. It's so freaking fantastic. And then all of the practical effects just work so well being integrated with the digital effects that, like, you're gonna be blown away considering this was made in what, 92, I believe? Yeah, this is absolutely a watch worth your time. Go watch Terminator 2 Judgment Day. That is, why do I need to suggest that even? This week in rumors, we've got a lot of love, if you can call it that, for the Fantastic Four. We have not one rumor, but we also have a leaked plot, supposedly. We're probably going to put that one to bed, though, as well as Half-Life 3 in the rumor mill, and this is a good one. All right, so we have no confirmations or refutations to talk about. We have no new sources for old rumors. We do have some new rumors to get into, and some speculation as well, but that's going to be afterwards. Let's get into new rumors. First up on new rumors, we have a Spider-Man rumor, but it's not a Spider-Man movie rumor necessarily. It is Spider-Man making a cameo in somebody else's movie. Fantastic Four, the First Steps movie, is supposedly going to be getting a cameo from Peter Parker. This one, I will be very, very surprised. It's not completely out of the question, but just the way that the Sony contract, from what little we know of the Sony contract, how it has worked so far is anytime they use Peter Parker, Sony has to be involved with the project. As we know it to be right now, Sony has no involvement with the Fantastic Four project. So there's not going to be any sort of Spider-Man in the Fantastic Four project. It's just not how this is going to work. So likelihood that we're going to see Spider-Man, like I said, it's not completely off the table, but it's teetering. We're going to say about 30% likely that Spider-Man is going to have some sort of cameo in the Fantastic Four movie. It will be cool if it happens. The most likely way that it could happen would be if they are on some other, in the multiverse, in some other universe, in some other world, in other Earth. It's going to be a different version of Spider-Man, because the rumor does say Spider-Man and not Peter Parker specifically. So will we see some other Spider-Man? That's why we went as high as 30%. But even so, Spider-Man is the license. That is what Sony owns. So that's why we can only go about 30%, because they still have to be involved for it to be Spider-Man. Just if it's not Peter Parker, they're probably going to require less involvement, which would be why we hadn't heard about it. Anyway, continuing on. Our next rumor has to do with the X-Men. So this one has to do with plot issues, which already tells you one thing at the very least. So the plot apparently is going to now be focusing on two characters. Specifically, those two characters are going to be Gambit and Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde makes a little bit of sense. Gambit does not, especially considering the rumor does go on to say that it is likely going to be a recast Gambit and not Channing Tatum's Gambit. So I really can't buy into this, not necessarily because of the Channing Tatum element of it, but the big red flag here is that we know this at all at this point, because from what we understand of where they're at with the mutants, the X-Men movie is still at least 4 years away, or 3 years away rather. At least 3 years away. It's going to be happening after Secret Wars. So do they have a scriptwriter? Nah, not bloody likely. Do they have a director? Possibly. But that's it. So like the fact that that somebody is speculating that we're going to see Gambit and Kitty Pryde, 20% likely, and that is being generous. The process, they're still finishing Secret Wars at this point. They haven't moved past it behind the scenes. This is a very, very slim chance that we're going to be seeing an X-Men movie that is going to focus on 2 secondary characters. Kitty Pryde, again, makes a little bit of sense because in the comics, she's pretty elemental in a lot of really big storylines, but Gambit, that's the other red flag. Is like, Gambit's a great character. I loved me some Remy LeBeau, but do normies know Gambit outside of Channing Tatum? Not so much. Or outside of the cartoon, which, I mean, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the animated show, the reboot, the X-Men 97, he dies in like the first or second episode, if I'm remembering correctly, so yeah, that's just weird. Though, that is the only reason why we went as high as 20% likely, is because them killing him off in the animated show, considering the animated show is expected to continue for some years, would make it less confusing for normies, but then the fact that he shows up in Deadpool kind of squashes that argument for it. So yeah, 20%. We're gonna stop rambling, I promise. From there, we have another Blade rumor. This time, it's outright canceled, according to the rumor. So the interesting part about this is, Blade is still on the release slate. There is some question as to whether or not the release slate has been updated, because a lot of things have been going on recently. So very possibly it is being moved back. We do know also Mahershala Ali has been cast in the new Jurassic World reboot, which again, why do you need to reboot something that was just rebooted like 8 years ago? Doesn't make any sense, whatever. But we have already heard from Mahershala Ali's people saying that he is still doing Blade. This is still going forward. It's just they have had so many setbacks that they have been set back so far. They have been set back so far that he's got plenty of time to do the Jurassic World movie, knock that out in a couple of months, and then be back in time to start filming scenes for Blade. He can also read more than one script at a time, so like, let's not get ahead of ourselves on this one, nerds. I'm putting 20% on this one as well. There is just very little likelihood that this has been completely scrapped. We already know, they've told us as much, that it has been pushed back excessively. They haven't told us exactly the reasons why. So if you want to speculate to that, by all means, go for it. But canceled or indefinitely on hiatus? Absolutely not. So from there, let's talk next about another Fantastic Four rumor. This one actually technically is a leak, quote unquote, but it is a leak from 4chan, so that already is telling you how much I believe it. But the leak is a script leak that only has the first 2 acts of the movie as far as the script goes. The big kind of broad strokes with this one is that the supposed script has it that we're going to see Galactus start in, so the first family of comic books, the Richards family, so Reed, Miss Fantastic, Johnny Storm, and let's take that back. Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm, those 4, that little family right there, that is the first family of comic books. They, according to this leaked script, again, we're using that word very loosely. According to this leaked script, they started out in the 616. So they originated in approximately like the 60s or 70s of the 616. They were Reed was doing experiments, yada yada. They teleported to a different universe, which I don't believe the script goes into the delineation of what the universe number was for this one, but we do know that they are in a different universe, but they started in the sacred timeline, the 616. And then they set up shop in that universe, and they're keeping this secret, and that's the first act. And then the second act, we get revealed that the Silver Surfer is watching and is letting people know, or lets them know that Galactus is coming to consume their Earth. And then they start to try and create a portal basically back to the 616 so that they can get away from that Earth because it's going to be devoured by Galactus. And then Silver Surfer tells Galactus that there is other worlds for him to devour. And so he follows them through the portal. And that's basically the second act. And then again, we don't have a third act in this script. That was not leaked by this leaker. Sounds like an interesting movie. If that is legitimately what happens, like, I'm not going to be opposed to that. Sounds like something I would watch. I have a very difficult time believing anything from this source because 4chan is 4chan. Also, it sounds a little too reliant on people buying into the multiverse for much longer. I know the big rumor is that as of Secret Wars, the multiverse is going to come to some sort of conclusion, so hopefully that's true. But again, I don't know. It's really hard to buy this one. The big thing here though is 4chan, so we're saying 10% likely. I can't give much credence to anything that comes from there. That's what we got on that one though. So let's go to our next big rumor, and that is Half-Life 3. There's a lot here for this Half-Life 3 rumor, but rumor suggests that there is a new unannounced game from Valve that is going to be Half-Life 3. Some of this has to do with data mines. Some of this has to do with a resume rather. Somebody who has previously worked for Valve that has a secret, or let's see if I can find it. White Sands. They said they worked on a project titled White Sands. White Sands is related to the universe of Half-Life, so that's a bit of a red flag. And also, like I said, some of the data mine stuff in the PlayStation. No, where was it? The White Sands. Where is it? HLX 2021 is blah 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 blah. There was something else, and I apparently did not put in. But there's another piece to this that escapes me at the moment because apparently I didn't put in the notes and I thought I did. But I'm sorry, I had to read the notes a little closer. It is in there, but so there was a project previously leaked called HLX. HLX also, there's some sort of correlation from that to the to Half-Life. I'm really super rusty on my Half-Life mythology at this point, but that is now believed to be Project White Sands, and that came out in 2021. So it sounds like there's quite a bit of evidence here to point to the very likely non-VR because we did get Half-Life Alyx, but non-VR Half-Life game, which very hopefully will be Half-Life 3. So I'm giving this one because Gaming Rumor comes from a couple of decent sources who have been able to verify at least some of this. And some of this is definitely just going on the obvious White Sands correlation. But we're saying about 85% likely that there is a Half-Life 3 game somewhere in development. Hopefully will be out soon. All right, and then our final rumor for this episode is Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom, new rumor has it that Robert Downey Jr. will not, in fact, be playing Victor Von Doom. Wow, brain fart. Will not be playing Victor Von Doom, but will, in fact, be playing a Tony Stark variant. And then that variant of Tony Stark gets killed in Secret Wars. Does this version of Dr. Doom end somehow as of Secret Wars? I believe that part of this rumor is 100% accurate, but that is not the entire rumor. The entire rumor is that he's going to be playing Tony Stark and not Victor Von Doom. I really, really hope that this is wrong. There's not enough to really go on it, so theoretically I should be giving this a 50-50 because it could go either way. I just think that our speculation that came out last week is a little bit more solid. It would be a better story to tell, I think. So that, I think, is the preferred way to go, which is the only reason why we went as low as we did this time, but 30% likely that this is going to be the way that Disney Marvel plays this. But yeah, like I said, that is our final rumor for this episode. We do have some speculation to talk about though. This one is homegrown. This is my personal speculation, but I do speculate that we will be moving into a Deadpool ripple of sorts. So this ripple is going to be, there's going to be some movies spinning off of Deadpool. Yes, I know that there is already stuff on the slate that is moving forward that is technically related because it's multiverse stuff and yada, yada, yada. Yes, established. But I think projects, there is going to be some sort of revival of these older IPs. My vote goes to the Channing Tatum Gambit. I really want to see that movie finally come to fruition. And then some sort of finalization for Wesley Snipes' Blade. be it as some sort of like short special that is only released on Disney Plus or something, I think there's going to be ripples and something is coming out of this that is not currently on the slate because this movie is so huge. Yes, we're going to get another Ryan Reynolds Deadpool movie. That's kind of a given at this point. We've crossed the $1 billion mark by a lot by now. So that's kind of a given. But I think there's going to be something else that spins out of this. That's my speculation. I can't really narrow it down much just yet, but as things kind of progress and we get a little bit more course correction from Kevin Feige, I think we'll be able to feel this one out a little bit more. But that's what we're placing right now in speculation territory. And that's what we got for this part of the episode, The Rumor Mill, which then puts us into housekeeping. So thank you very much for sticking all the way to the end to the housekeeping portion. So big red elephant in the room, pink elephant, whatever, is we didn't actually do the That Just Happened episode last week. I honestly just ran out of time. So my apologies. We will be talking about all of those things that I said we would be talking about this week. I'm about to film That Just Happened, so it will be a thing. Yeah, as far as other things go, we have Beetlejuice, but that's 3 weeks out at this point. We have a couple of concerts, like 3 different shows to be talking about in That Just Happened. As far as next month is concerned, we are still looking at November-ish off-season beginning. So we're just about 2.5, just under 3 months away from the off-season starting. So for those that haven't been here, if you're new to the channel of sorts, and you don't know what I mean by the off-season, I am a one-man show. I do this all by myself. All the research, all the filming, all of the editing, everything is done by me, by myself. So that makes it very hard to update things. So in order to go from one season to the next with updated graphics and make things keep feeling fresh, I have to take time off. And I don't like to 100% not publish anything because that's not the way the YouTube algorithm works. We switched to a live format for about 3 months or so, starting November, running through January, sometimes into February. But yeah, definitely November through January. And there's a couple of spots in there where we take about a week or 2 off. Not the least of which going to be the 2 big holidays that happen, Christmas and Thanksgiving. So yeah, we will be taking a little bit of time off. That's months out though. As far as other things go, still got things brewing in the background. It's just hard being a one-man show. This is very time consuming, plus the day job makes things rather difficult. So yeah, that's what we got for housekeeping. Thank you very much, nerds, for sticking around. I appreciate your faces. Stay tuned for That Just Happened this week. It will be a bit of a long episode just because we have a lot to talk about. And yeah, I appreciate you, nerds. Thank you very much for sticking around. We'll see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.